What's going on, Sunbelt fans? Hello, welcome into another episode of the Sunbelt Syndicate. I am your host, Dominic Corsetto. Today, we are going to jump into the Marshall Thundering Herd preview. Quick shout out to Teksho once again for providing the music for the podcast. Last 3 years for Marshall: 2019, an 8-5 record; 2020, a 7-3 record; and in 2021, a 7-6 overall record. In that time frame, they beat one ranked opponent, who happened to be App State, now conference foe and rival once again. They did have one conference title appearance. Obviously, that was in Conference USA, as this is their first year in the Sun Belt. And they were ranked for 4 straight weeks at one point in time. They do come away with a surprising 0-3 bowl record in those last 3 seasons. So let's jump into the offense. I think the offense can thrive this year if newcomer and Texas State transfer Henry Colombi Jr. can be the quarterback that they need. Grant Wells left and is already been named the starter at Virginia Tech. I actually thought highly of him, and I guess he kind of fell out of favor. I did not watch as much Marshall football towards the end of the season, as they were not a conference team at that point in time. So I'm not sure how much he fell off, in the eye test. I know in statistics he fell off. If Columbia could come in there and really just be the guy they need all around, I think the offense can do well. I think they've got the stuff they need in the other positions to succeed. I think the offense can struggle if that O-line struggles to give Columbia the time and open up holes for Ali. Rasheen Ali's been a great running back. I think they've got a good offensive line, but if for some reason they do struggle replacing anybody or with injuries, it could be a little bit of surprise offensively for them. I think the defense can thrive if that D-line can match the strength and consistency of the linebacking core. I think the linebacking core is actually a big strength here for Marshall. I expect them to play very well this year. The D-line needs to match them if they want to have a lot of success. I think the defense struggles if they can't plug the holes up front and stop the run. They did allow some teams to rush for quite a bit of yards last year. If they can fix that issue, I think they'll be much better and improved this season. Special teams, they struggled in the kicking game last year, but Marshall's really only landed outside the top 40 twice in the last 5 seasons as far as special teams go. I expect them to actually get a little bit better here. The kicking woes, they got to turn at some point, right? You would think that they've got to get that turned around and improve. So I expect that to actually improve. I think they've got a good return game, so I'm not concerned there at all. Let's jump right into the season. September 3rd, they host Norfolk State. I don't see this one being a competition. I think Marshall's going to be much too strong. They may take a little time, a quarter or two, to get into this rhythm and seasoning on some of these guys that they need, but I think they come away with a W over Norfolk State. Norfolk State. I can't say that right today. I'm going to try and work on that. I don't know why it's messing me up like that. Then they travel September 10th to Notre Dame, and let's be honest, Notre Dame, always vastly overrated, but I do think that they will come away with the victory there over Marshall. So I'm going to give Marshall an L on that. I'd hope for the opposite, especially against a P5 opponent that I personally don't have much liking for, and I think is always vastly overrated because of their name and what they think they stand for. But I think they may still be too powerful for Marshall at this point in time. Then they go to Bowling Green, which when I'm thinking about this game early on, I'm thinking easy W for Marshall. Bowling Green hasn't been much in the MAC, but if you go back and look through the history, it's actually shocking that Bowling Green has had the better of the matchup, but it's also been very close the last few times. And they haven't played real recent, but yeah, it's a little bit more of a toss-up than I thought, really. But I do think by then Marshall should be hitting their stride, especially if they do lose to Notre Dame. They're going to be wanting to get back on pace, and I think they can do it against Bowling Green. It's not a long road trip for them at all, so it might even be much like a home game with how Marshall travels. So then they will travel down again, 3rd week in a row at Troy, and I think part of that is going to be just too much. I have Troy being pretty strong out in the West, actually, and I think maybe a surprise to some Marshall fans here, but I think Troy actually comes away with a victory there, and Marshall is coming away with an L on that one. But again, then they host Gardner-Webb, which should be a walk in the park, and maybe some retribution for losing a game or two that they think they shouldn't have. So I think they rebound well against Gardner-Webb. They have a bye week, and then they go down. No, I'm sorry. They host Louisiana on a Wednesday night. And Louisiana is coming off a bye. And let's be honest, that was a great bowl game last year, even though Marshall had a lot of injuries. I think the revenge factor will be strong in that one, and I don't see Marshall losing it. Not at home, not to a team that they just don't like. And it only took one time to do that. So I think this could become another great rivalry here in the Sun Belt, even though these two teams geographically aren't all that close. I think this could be an exciting really, it's going to be a great game to watch on a Wednesday night, honestly. Then they travel to James Madison. Again, FCS team moving up. James Madison is talented. I just don't think they're talented enough at this point in time to beat a Marshall team. I have Marshall winning that one. And then they host Coastal Carolina for their homecoming game. Coastal Carolina is coming off a bye. As stated in the App State preview, I think Coastal lost a lot more than people think. This will be their first ever meeting. And I just think being at home, homecoming, Coastal maybe being down a little bit more than people expect. I think Marshall comes away with the W. Then they go down to ODU. And again, I think ODU will struggle this year. And I think Marshall's just too strong. And these are old conference foes and now still conference foes, I guess. And they know each other well, but I just don't think Old Dominion has the strength to beat a Marshall team at this point in time. Then they will host Appalachian State, as covered in the App State preview. I think the revenge factor may be too great at that time for App State to lose. I got Marshall losing that game. They follow that up with a trip down to Georgia Southern, and I don't know what Georgia Southern will be like that late in the season, but looking at it early, I still think Marshall will be vastly improved by then as well. So I am expecting Marshall to walk away with a W on that one. Then they finish the season at home against Georgia State, and this one may surprise some Marshall fans, but I have them losing to Georgia State at home in the season finale, mainly because I just have Georgia State as having their best season ever. So that was almost a formality with my thought process behind Georgia State. I think Marshall has a good season overall. If you go by what I've just read, your regular season record for Marshall fans stands at 8-4. Still a great season to start off with in the Sun Belt, and it would pretty much be one of your best seasons in the past 4 years. So like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you again next time. Thanks for listening.